Do they have a guy to get it to? That's the question.
James Winston.
Yeah, that's another 7-win team.
Well, their receiver room was significantly upgraded, obviously, through the draft and free agency, so Thomas is not going to face as many double teams as he used to. Kamara, the suspension's still up in the air. You don't think this is a playoff team, huh?
No, we have no idea. It's a coach quarterback league. Where's their coach in the top 15?
Hey, that's salad.
So they don't have a top 15 coach and don't have a top 15 quarterback. That's 7-win territory.
Tough sledding. All right, third story. If you've watched Hard Knocks.
In the 2022 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State.
Sources confirm that the Saints have agreed to a deal with Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, bringing the New Orleans native and former LSU star home and filling a need on defense. This coming from our Mike Triplett, who covers the New Orleans Saints.
We do have some breaking news, though, here on NFL Live, and for that, we go to Adam Schefter. What's going on, Shefty?
Well, Shane, moments ago, Jarvis Landry, the free agent wide receiver, confirmed he's no longer a free agent. He's signing with the New Orleans Saints. And so after the draft, the Saints signed the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, and now they've added Jarvis Landry to go along with Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. And the Saints are building a formidable wide receiver trio. Landry is
a lot of change in New Orleans. New head coach, Jarvis Landry. You've got Tyrann Mathieu in the mix. What's the ceiling for the Saints team this season?
Well, interestingly enough, this team could actually win the NFC South. If we keep on seeing these injuries to Tampa Bay is losing a lot. But not only that, the Saints have beat the Buccaneers 7 out of the last 8 times they played them. I mean, so they have the Bucs number. And so for me, you could not only win the South, you could actually make a run in the playoffs if Michael Thomas gets healthy, if Jarvis Landry fits in that offense, if Jameis Wilson gets healthy. Their defense, at least the Saints defense, is one of the top defenses in the NFL. Even last year with third-string quarterbacks, they were finding ways to win. And so for me, that Saints defense, along with the potential of Jarvis Landry fitting this offense and Michael Thomas being healthy, what he was back in 2019, the Saints team could not only win the division, they could actually make a run in the playoffs.
How far can Jameis Winston take the Saints? Are they the sleeper team in the NFC? Key, it worked like usually when you draft a guy, say like Josh Allen, and you have this plan, these grand plans, it doesn't work out perfectly like it did. Every year he gets better, and you get him the receiver, and now he's the superstar. Same thing with Jameis Winston. Just because he's throwing too many interceptions, I have an idea. He'll sit behind Drew Brees, and he'll have Sean Payton as a coach. But it seemed to work that way because when he saw action, he looked really good last year, I thought. How far can he take the Saints team?
Well, Jameis Winston looked good in Tampa Bay, Max. I think when people looking at the 30 interceptions and not the 5,000 yards in the air and the 30 touchdowns, we all point to the 30 interceptions without even discounting bad routes, misinformation, balls off receivers' hands. You discount that and slice that in half, that's only 15 picks. Nevertheless, you move forward to the New Orleans Saints. I think Jameis Winston is going to do just fine. I think when you talk about the addition of Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, and when they get Alvin Kamara back, what will that be? Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, moves over to head coach. That's okay because he'll still be in charge and running the defense. They kept the DNA inside the building. They didn't go outside and get a coach that didn't understand what the culture of the New Orleans Saints is all about. Pete Carmichael on the offensive side of the ball will be dialing up the plays. I think that they've always given the Bucs fits. That'll be the case again this year. They are, as far as a sleeper team, I don't necessarily know how you call them a sleeper. I think you look at where they were a year ago prior to Jameis Winston getting hurt. Once he got hurt, they fell apart just like the Baltimore Ravens when they lost Lamar Jackson. So I'm looking for them to be one of the top 3 to 4 teams in the NFC from beginning to end.
I love the Saints. Obviously, that defense and Dennis Allen, they don't miss a beat. Their OC is still intact. I think Jameis Winston is an underrated quarterback. I think he's going to have a pretty big breakout year. I just wonder about the health of Michael Thomas. I think that's a big thing. I mean, now has a hamstring injury. You're wondering about what that's going to be. So I think with him on the field, it takes his team over the top.
not. They got a better team than guys that are picked to win the Super Bowl. I don't understand. Is it a Jameis Winston? Like, what is it that people just don't like saying that the Saints are a very good football team? They were 5-2 a year ago prior to Jameis Winston's injury. They get Michael Thomas back, which is a key. Here's how I look at this. Michael Thomas is essentially a high-priced free agent coming back to a team that added Landry at the slot position, Chris Olave to lift the coverage, and the defense is solid and sound all the way around. So I don't understand how they would even be in a sleeper category.
Jameis Winston is no Drew Brees. And you're going to have to be Drew Brees for this Saints team to come out of the NFC. I don't see that happening.
You don't have to.
I believe in that defense, though. I believe in that defense, and I believe in Kamara, and I believe in Michael Thomas, but I'm not sure about Winston yet.
He doesn't even have to be great. He just has to be good. And I think he is one of the most talented quarterbacks. You talk about arm strength, accuracy. Listen, environment matters, right? Just like we learned about Matthew Stafford in Detroit, never winning a playoff game. Environment matters. And now he's in an environment where he can flourish. You talk about Jarvis Landry. This team has leaders. This team has been knocking on the door for the last 5 years, and finally they have a complete package. You got Chris Olave, who's going to be the opposite of Michael Thomas on the outside. They brought in leaders. Marcus May is on this team now. I know they lost Marcus Williams, but Marcus May. They brought in a Honey Badger, a champion, a shown-up bona fide baller to come back with Cam Jordan. They have leaders on that squad now. And my only concern was, okay, how are they going to replace Armstead? Well, they go out there and get Trevor Penny, who really delighted everybody at the Senior Bowl at Northern Iowa. They have Ramczyk, who's an all-pro on the other side. This team has no flaws. And if you say the only flaw they have is Jameis Winston, that is a very small flaw. This allows Taysom Hill to be who he's always been, a gadget guy, a situational football player. Alvin Kamara is one of the best in the business, dual threat. This team is, listen, and already this team has beaten Tom Brady, the great Tom Brady, 4 out of 5 times. And the only time they lost it was because Drew Brees was the quarterback. And they weren't able to push the ball down the field, so they just packed the middle of the field and played everything in front. You can't do that with Jameis Winston. I'm telling you, the Saints are a legitimate threat to be a Super Bowl champion, and I think we're going to erase all the narrative that we had about Jameis Winston, all the funny stuff, him sucking his fingers, him stealing crab legs, ha, ha, ha. This guy is a pro. This guy is a respected leader, and now he's around a bunch of other leaders. And for everybody who's talking about, well, Sean Payton's not there, well, neither is Bruce Arians. And we're not talking about Todd Bowles. We still have, Carmichael, who's been there. We have Dennis Allen, who's been there. I think they should be the favorite. And they are the most complete team in football. Write it down.
That's the most by any player in 4 seasons in NFL history, while also ranking top 5 in receiving yards and TD catches. But again, he's only played 9 of 33 possible regular season games since 2020. He was hampered by that ankle injury last season. Courtney, I want to start with you here. Do you think Michael Thomas can be a top 10 receiver again?
No, because, and it's no real slight on him. It's just that so many other guys who have been producing in the time that he's been gone, they're higher on the list for me. Like, my top 10 list is Adams, Kupp, Hill, Jefferson, Diggs, Chase, Hopkins, Debo, Mike Evans, and Keenan Allen. I don't know where I would put Michael Thomas into the mix there. And for me, I mean, he's a long way from that 149 catch season. This is an offense that just drafted Chris Olave with a first-round pick. They've got Jarvis Landry, in the slot there. There's Alvin Kamara, who's very dangerous at catching passes out of the backfield. I don't know if he'll get the production within this offense to be able to be a top 10 receiver if we're going to look at it statistically by the end of the year.
Yeah, no way I can put him in the top 10. Courtney did a great job. Yeah, also throwing the fact no Breeze and no Sean Payton. So he doesn't have his quarterback and doesn't have Peyton. Now he's got Dennis Allen, who we discussed earlier today, and who knows who their starting quarterback is going to be. So, and I have a Chase, Adams, Jefferson, Hill, Hopkins, Kupp. I'll put Metcalf in there as I love him. I like A.J. Brown. I love him. So there is a lot of wide receivers in the NFL. You cannot put them in the top 10. You can't miss 2 years and all of a sudden come back and you're a top 10 receiver. You can't do that.
Watch me play now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things when we're trying to predict, and in trying to predict, can he be a top 10 receiver? I don't know how you say he can't. When you look at a guy over 140 plus catches, over 1,700 yards, and it was a different offense then, and he was playing with one of the, or if not the most accurate quarterback we've ever seen, but it also was old Drew Brees. It was Drew Brees that couldn't push the football down the field, and it was Michael Thomas using his body, using his awareness, using his toughness to make these catches. And I don't think those things go away. And yes, he's been away from the game for 2 years, and injuries do factor in. But I think back to a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., and I think back to the production we started to see late last season. This was Odell Beckham Jr., who was coming off of an ACL injury, who was coming off of downtime, or was coming off of down years in Cleveland, and we watched him be able to produce even on a team with a guy like a Cooper Kupp, who got more of the targets or most of the targets. And so when I look back at some of the film of Michael Thomas, the way he plays the game, the way he understands the game, and the usage and the help and benefit that he can be to Jameis Winston, also playing with other players around him who can attract attention, I believe he can move in to the top 10. And I think by even listening to Mad Dogs and listening to Courtney's top 10s, which both of them are conversational pieces and can be correct based on opinion, I think Michael Thomas is a guy that can inch into that. Keenan Allen, who I believe is a top 3 route runner in the entire league. I don't necessarily know if statistically we could say right now unequivocally he'll do more than Michael Thomas, when what we do know is when we take the best of years, if you remove Cooper Kupp, who's at the top, obviously, if you remove a guy like Devontae Adams, maybe Chase and Jefferson, numbers-wise, he can rival a lot of these players. Numbers-wise, he has had better years than most of these players. And so you can throw him in that conversation, and to say that he has no opportunity to be top 10 to me is kind of disrespectful to what that man has accomplished in his career already.
The team that I am really bold on this year is the New Orleans Saints. I tell you what, the New Orleans Saints 4-1 against terrific time with Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston's got an array of weapons, a Super Bowl caliber defense. You talk about, just the ability to be multiple offensively and shut you down defensively. This is a physical defensive side. I think people are going to understand the greatness of Jameis Winston. You throw a goldfish in the ocean, it's a lot bigger than when it's in a bowl. That means environments matter, and he's in a perfect environment for him to thrive. What say you, Archie?